Okay, welcome to the Ancestral Science Podcast, and I'm so excited to host our first video episode thanks to the Indigenous Green Office for their grant funding. We're so excited today to welcome both Wilfred Buck and Rob Cardinal. And first I will start with protocols of tobacco, and I have some tobacco here to offer for both of your time and your wisdom and sharing this space here today. Hi. Okay, so with that, I'll offer space for you both to introduce yourselves in your own way. Maybe, Wilfred, we can start with you.
All right. Don't say, now. One minute to teach you, Mr. Newgassen. Boskap, you know what you? It is you, my gun, Moscow. You can make a show into them. You ask with none and taught them. I know ski show. Greetings, my relatives. I'm called Dreamkeeper, also known as Wilfred Buck from Boskap Cree Nation. And I'm currently based in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Go Jets!
Nice.
And I'm honored to be allowed to share some space here today with my brother and my sister here. Good to see them again. Though it was from a long way off. And I'm just ready to listen and learn. Naskman, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hi. Rob, over to you.
Wait a minute, you're supposed to be teaching. I'm listening and learning. Okie. Hello, everyone. Nadanako Kakato Sina. Niminato do Sixaga. It's hi, everyone. I'm Rob Cardinal. I'm from Sixaga, and I'm Blackfoot. By all accounts, also part settler. You know, I come from mixed heritage and survived the 60s scoop, and I'm actually incredibly grateful for that. And as I approach this sort of elderly age, I've become more and more grateful for everything. And so I'm incredibly grateful for being here. Clearly, with my brother Wilfred and Corey. This is fantastic. We've been together, numerous times in numerous places. This isn't even the first virtual, but hopefully it goes all awesome.
We like to chat over all platforms.
Yeah.
Hi.
Open all hailing frequencies.
I was thinking about the first time we were all together in Winnipeg at TVs and Telescopes, which I believe at that time, how many TVs and Telescopes have you done, Wilfred?
Well, altogether, probably about 9.
It's awesome. This was probably 6th or 7th edition.
Yeah.
And it was a fantastic experience. I don't know if either of you want to share any stories about that gathering. Also, we had a similar gathering, TVs and Telescopes, here in Kananaskis a year after that. So we get to hang out under the stars a lot, which I love. But I think that first meeting was when I wasn't running around working. It was a profound few days for myself. Would you like to share any interesting stories or any anecdotes from that gathering?
Oh my gosh, yes. But I would love to ask Wilfred to just share with everyone how it was the TPs and Telescopes came to be.
Yeah.
I started actively researching the Tagosa, those stars, about 2005, 2006. And I actually went about trying to learn about the sky and about the stars and about how everything was connected. And as I was doing that, I'd stumbled across a portable planetarium, inflatable dome, which you could pretty much take around wherever you went. And so I started using that at the schools that I visited, and I started talking to the students about their sky from their people's perspective, and they ate it up. And in the process of doing this for the first 2 or 3 years, I guess word got around to in the astronomical community that there was this guy going around with a portable planetarium talking about Cree stars. And so I started using that at the schools that I visited, and I started talking to the students about their sky from their people's perspective, and they ate it up. And in the process of doing this for the first 2 or 3 years, I guess word got around to in the astronomical community that there was this guy going around with a portable planetarium talking about Cree stars. And next thing you know, I'm getting these calls from every year, I guess, during the summer, the spring, winter, and fall. I mean, spring, summer, and fall seasons. There's a dedicated group of amateur astronomers called the Royal Canadian Astronomical Society, right across Canada, and there's other forms that there was in the States, and they started calling me and asking me to come and speak at their gatherings they had each summer. So I started doing that, and I was pretty much going all over the place talking about the Cree stars. And one night we were in Cypress Hills. One weekend we were in Cypress Hills, and we were presenting right on top of the mountain there. I think it's Moose Mountain or whatever it was. It was really dark there. Like I literally walked into a moose at the parking lot. That's okay. But the amazing thing about that is that after about an hour or two, your eyes get adjusted and you can see everything. You can see everything, and you can make out shadows, and you can even see the shadow of the starlight shadows. It was totally amazing. And anyway, so I was out there one night, and I was asked to present. So I had this laser pointer, and I was talking to pointing at the stars, and I was telling some narratives about how people's understanding about the stars. And everybody was listening. There must have been probably about 200 telescopes on top of that mountain, and a whole bunch of people all over the place, just standing around staring up at the sky. And then out of the darkness, I hear, "Hey, how come our people don't have this kind of stuff?" And I turn around, I look, and there's this guy standing there, and he shakes my hand. He said, and his last name was Stonechild, and he's from Regina. He said, how come our people don't have this kind of stuff? Look at all these people here. I looked at him and said, hey, yeah, why? How come our people don't have this kind of stuff? So I thought about that. Then I went home, and I was telling my wife what happened, and she said, well, it looks like you got to start one of these things then. So that's what I did. We got about 3 telescopes together, and then of course we have our ceremonial grounds. And one of the things that the wife always mentions is that whenever we do something, we always got to do so in a good way, and we always got to open with ceremony. And so that's basically what differentiated ourselves from everybody else, is that we begin with ceremony, and ceremony is central in whatever we do. And so that's how it began. We just there were just I think there was 4 or 5 of us that gathered, and then the Royal Astronomical Society came, and there was about 15 of them. So the very first one, we probably had about maybe 40, 50 people standing in that field. We were outside of Winnipeg looking at the night sky.
Wow.
And then the next year we did it again, and then we had an elder from Hawaii show up. I don't know how she got there, but she showed up. She heard about this thing, and she came.
No way.
And then we had a couple of Anishinaabe elders. And,
awesome.
A couple of people from Saskatchewan. And so it just
snowballs
fall into place and snowball as we went along. And the next thing, you guys are showing up there, and we had what I don't know how many people out in that field, 300 people out in that field.
I think it was more than that.
Nice warm October night.
Oh, it's beautiful. I know about you. My eyes did not adjust. That's what I remember, is that I remember like speaking with people for hours until like 6 a.m. And then the next day, like, oh, it's so nice we had such a great chat. Like, your voice sounds familiar, but I don't know who you are.
Well, the light adjustment of your eyes, there was way too many flashlights. There was a lot of flashlights.
Yeah, there was. Yeah,
that's true.
And we're pointing flashlights to the ground and staring at that. And so your eyes just don't get a chance. But that is fascinating. I love the part about your wife made you do it. I mean, or, offered it and brought that up. And I mean, that's exactly, what a good partner, could see. Like, you're telling them what's going on, and they're like, well, clearly this is what you must do. That's just so wonderful. I love that. And yes, I mean, snowballing. I mean, when we came out, I mean, Corey approached me and said, we got to do this here. let's go and ask Wilfred if we can. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was whirlwind too.
Well, Wilfred asked me to reach out to you.
Oh, okay, all right. See, that's all coming around now. So I remember getting the telescope ready to come out there, and I had like the two big Pelican cases with the mount in one and the telescope in the other, and all my optics, and it was all packed up, and I sent it cargo, but you weren't allowed to put the batteries in cargo, so it's got this big Celestron battery to run the mount. And I went to the airport with that thing. With nobody would say for sure you can take this until I was literally at security, and I had like 6 security people came, and they're all like measuring it, weighing it, looking at it, swabbing it. And I told them, I said, literally, there's 800 pounds worth of telescope at the other end of this flight. It's completely useless without this battery. And I said what we were doing. I mentioned what we were doing. And
yeah.
They let us go.
Thanks, WestJet.
Yeah, but and then we came. So I need to tell this part. I don't know where your seasick was, but I know where mine. So probably the very most significant thing that happened, I mean, meeting everyone is the most significant thing.
Yeah.
It's that relationship where you're sharing, right? You're sharing, and that's that's meta, meta shit. But so, in my experience, our ways, our First Nations understanding of the way things come about and the way things come to be, and the way they weave together, are lifelong, or even much longer than life. And one of them was at the end when Wilfred gifted us these ceremonial rattles, and he told us the story and the name and what it was connected to. And I remember all that very clearly. But the thing was, when he pulled that blanket back, when he pulled that print back, and they were laying there, I dreamt of these when I was first adopted. I was about 2 years old. Before I could even talk, I was dreaming of these things. And there was always 2 of them in my dream, dancing, and there was singing, but of course they have no mouth, so it freaked me out. Where's the singing coming from? But I would cry. I would wake up at least once a month, crying to my mom. I would draw pictures of these things. They terrified me. I thought they were going to kill me. And there was always 2 of them. And in this dream, it was terrifying because it's just short. And you're like, I was a baby. Anyway, these are exactly what was in the dream. And the hairs on my neck stood up. And suddenly this ancient nightmare from when I was a child, this recurring nightmare, was revealed to be this incredible dream. This is what it was signifying, was coming to TVs and telescopes and meeting Wilfred and making this request to bring it back for the West here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so that truly is the most personal, touching part of it. And I remember going home that night. I was scared to bring it in my room. I called my mom and I was like, "Mom, do you remember this thing? Do you remember I was?" And she said, "Oh yes, you used to draw pictures of those things."
Oh, yeah, mine's right there.
Oh, is it? Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah. I'm attached here, so. But no, I love the teaching of that the 2 sides and the walking in both worlds, and it really was almost a validation for me too, in continuing to do this work and trying to do it well and walking in those 1 foot in each world. So it's a beautiful gift. Thank you, Wilfred.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I see this every morning and every night on my way to bed.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to bring up, Wilfred, you mentioned the Cree star map. I've never showed you this, and maybe I'll take a picture later, but early on when I was doing my PhD, I found that graphic of the Cree star map, and we'll show it here as well. And you've made, how many star maps have you made now? There's a Ojibwe, a Cree, what else?
Well, I've just personally been involved with the Cree one, but there's other maps.
There's other ones.
There's Dakota and there's Anishinaabe.
Right. Yeah. And it really struck me when I I came across it, because it really showed. I beated it, and I beated this representation of kind of the Greek and Roman, the Western constellations that everybody, you learn about in school that are more familiar maybe. And then I was just drawn to this connection with the Cree constellations, and I kind of overlapped those to see, again, those bringing together those two worlds. So thank you for that. That was also a significant part of my, starting off point in my work that I've been doing too.
And I was in Rochester for the totality, and we didn't see it. Of course, it was just totally cloudy. We didn't see, but we felt, and well, I guess I shouldn't say we didn't see it. We were in the totality, and it got dark, like pitch dark. And the awesome thing about that is that we were invited to a ceremony with the Cayuga people, or the Shawnee people.
Mm-hmm.
So we left the university and we went to their camp, and that's where we were when totality happened. And the thing about that is, after it was over, everybody's sitting around talking, and one of the ladies, she said she was at Kananaskis.
No way! At TVs and telescopes.
Yeah. I thought it was cool.
Hey, no fair. I missed it. I was locked up. I missed the whole joke.
Oh,
I heard that Corey Gray had a pretty good time. He was out in Hamilton there too. And I think
Corey Gray was.
They did see totality in Hamilton. Yeah.
Oh.
But I want to go to Spain next time. I've only seen partials. I want that experience of that darkness, and thank you for the prompt of our next conversation about the solar eclipse.
Greenland and what is it?
I think it's Greenland and Spain in 2026.
Yeah, 2026, July, I think it is. July something, 2026.
Okay, meet everyone there. We're all going to take a road trip.
No, I'm not going anywhere.
We'll zoom you in.
Okay. Point the camera at it.
So, Wilfred, you were in Rochester during totality.
Yeah.
What was it? What was something significant about? You said it was super dark. What else was amazing about that experience? Was that the first time you've been in totality?
Yes, very first time I've been in totality. I've been in partial. I saw it partial, but
yeah,
out in Saskatoon back, was it 2017 or something?
2017, yeah.
Yeah, I was at Winiskewin and outside of Saskatoon. We were looking at it. Mm-hmm. Pretty cool. But yeah, it was like total blackness. Though there were clouds, it just got total light. But the awesome thing about that is, if you looked on the horizon, everywhere you looked on the horizon, there was light. It was like a rainbow all the way around, right around in the 360. But right above us, it was just total black. And it just got deadly quiet. Everybody just quiet. And nobody said a word. The birds didn't sing, nothing. Even the car, you didn't hear the cars even. And it just got total dead silence. Which was so cool.
Got chills.
And we were sitting there, and I was with a couple of people, and one of them had their pipe, and we smoked the pipe, and we sat there, and we prayed, and we sang. It was just totally awesome.
Wow, what an experience!
Yeah.
Wow, Rob, what were you doing?
Well, I was at the high school at Îethka, and we've got some pictures we're going to put up post right with that.
Yep.
So we had an 8-inch Celestron out on a mount, and had a tracking sun, and of course had a solar filter on there. We managed to get the kids all solar viewing glasses. Last minute, it was perfect, worked out, because we weren't sure of the weather. It was $5,000 on glasses if it's gonna be cloudy. So anyway, it was fantastic, and a lot of people got to see through the scope. I had a great little camera holder so people could swap their phone out and get pictures of it. So we had absolutely perfect weather. It couldn't have been clearer, and there was no wind, thankfully. It's so windy out there all the time.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. If it's not the wind or the clouds, so it was absolutely fantastic.
What did the kids say?
Well, they knew what to expect, I think. I mean, they're generally pretty quiet. I didn't hear any. I mean, I heard a few wows and a few, oh, cool, Uh, but I noticed that they hung around. They didn't just take a quick look and then run away, right? They took a look and then they all kind of stood around and they kept waiting, right? And watching. And so, yeah, I would say a large portion of them stuck around for a good hour checking it out.
Good.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Nice. Yeah,
And so what was significant about that for me is that right at that door of the high school was literally, that door was the threshold that I walked through the night that I was introducing, that I was giving in college at Tsuut'ina. And, that day I'd given the same talk at noon to the Rotary Club at the Crystal Ballroom downtown, Palliser Hotel. Very opulent, very gaudy. And my elder, Maggie, came with me to both talks. She came at noon, and then at 6, we were out at Tsuut'ina, having dinner in the gymnasium, on paper plates with, good red style 40th anniversary.
Yeah.
And there was a few keynotes, and Maggie gifted me a different rattle, that had been gifted to her by the same medicine man that I went to see when I was 15. The one time that I saw him, and so she had been keeping this rattle for like 35 years. And gifted it to me on that night. So we ran out to my car and smudged it, and I just got inside just in time for my talk. I put that rattle in, and during that talk, that was when Auntie Louise said, I know who this is.
Oh.
And she came up and said as much. And of course, it took me 2 years to get up the courage to actually call her and really get this.
It was when you were ready.
Yeah. So I was thinking about that during the eclipse, the whole time during the eclipse. Yeah.
Cool. So, Wilfred, you posted the most amazing graphic of the eclipse. And we'll share that now for the viewers to see. Can you talk more about that? Because that honestly, blew my mind. And I did show it to Rob too.
Yeah, it was jaw-dropping.
Yeah. Can you maybe describe the graphic, Wilfred, and kind of where that came to be?
Well, if you put up that Cree star map first.
Yep, on it.
We'll, because that's pretty much the reference point. On that star map, we have Corona Borealis. And one of the names we have for that is Matutshan. Matutshan is the sweat lodge. And in the winter sky, Corona Borealis at certain times at night is up on one side of the sky, and directly opposite it is the Pleiades. So as the Pleiades are in the western sky, just going down, Corona Borealis is coming up, and they're a direct line across from each other. And the halfway point, which is also in direct line, is Polaris, the North Star.
What?
So it's in direct alignment. You have Corona Borealis, you have the North Star, and you have the Pleiades. And in the Cree and a lot of other, I don't know about the Siksika, but I know the Dakota and Anishinaabe, that alignment is there. But though they see it in different directions, but it's there. So pretty much any sweat lodge that I've been at, there's that alignment where you have the lodge, you have the altar, and you have the fire, and they're always in direct line, and it's in reference to that sky. So the Corona Borealis is the sweat lodge, the altar is Polaris, the North Star, and the fire is the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters. And I always wonder about that because I'd sit in the sweat lodge and I look at that pit, and I was wondering, what does this represent? I was thinking, and one time I was laying by the lodge, I had my face right down, laying at the lodge. It was a deadly hot sweat, and I was ready to knock out. I was laying down, and I was looking out, and the fire was burning bright, and I was laying at ground level. My eyesight was at ground level, and I was looking toward the fire pit. And as I was looking toward the fire pit, the altar was blocking out the fire. And the shadow was coming in. I said, "Holy smokes!" And then after that happened, I had this dream, and the dream was that image that I shared. I got Mr. Wasses to draw that image. I explained to him what it was. Then he drew it out, and that's what it represents.
Oh my gosh, that just gives me shivers. That is so remarkable.
Yeah, so because one of the elders told me, yeah, that fire that represents Pisim, the sun, and he said that's the moon. That altar is the moon, and this is Aski, Matutsan. That's Aski. But they never went further and said the pit was something. One of them said the pit was the unknown. They said because half of that dome of the Matutsan is the known world, but that dome is a sphere. And the other half of that sphere is the unknown. So there's the known and the unknown, and it occupies our same reality. And it's just that we don't know it, but it's there. And so that pit represents that totality of I guess you could say a black hole even. That pit represents that shadow, that darkness that passes through. That knowledge that we know is there, but we don't understand it. But for our people, it's okay. We don't understand it. Maybe at some point somebody will.
Well, I mean, I feel like we do understand. I mean, we go in that lodge in the middle of the day, right? On a bright sunny day, we go into the darkness, you know, and the teachings and the awareness and the healing and the power of that is undeniable. And I was so fascinated by that graphic. I have the honor and privilege of teaching our first 3 Physics 30 students this year out at Cardinal. And so they're doing grade 12 physics. And we've been talking about a lot about nuclear physics, atoms, molecules, and how the universe came to be sort of at the beginning of this course. And then, of course, you know, the eclipse came along. And so I was telling them about how, you know, you can know everything there is to know physically about an eclipse and literally have no meaning. It will mean nothing to you. Really, in a Western, you know, objective scientific viewpoint, it's really meaningless. It's just something that happens. But, you know, I said to these students, and I said, you know, the depth of meaning in this event, you know, is seen by our, you know, elders and our knowledge keeper as one of the most meaningful things that you know, that can happen or that you can witness. And I showed them that graphic that you sent, and the look on their face to bring a lesson home, it couldn't have been better, because of course they understood with the lodge and the altar and the fire pit. So, you know, it really brought it home that, you know, just having all the information doesn't necessarily give you meaning or knowledge, right? That's just information. And the relationship and the depth of the meaning of those things is where the knowledge. That was, yeah. It was so perfect, that graphic. And I'm just so touched to hear the story of how it came to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting. I was having a conversation in the previous episode with Dr. Edward Doolittle, and was talking about something similar in the differences between knowledge or information and meaning and understanding, and how that, like, knowledge or information is, you know, it's external, it's objective, you know, it's you know, you can collect it, you can commodify it, but meaning and understanding, it's internal, it's, you know, it's gifted to you, it's a connection between yourself and that knowledge, and there's a relationship and a reciprocity. So yeah, I love that graphic and that story can bring meaning to something that is, you know, I think very seemingly very scientific, in that very global Western scientific, and here's the information about it, and which is fascinating, but to bring that, you know, relationality and that the culture and land-based teachings is significant.
Yeah, in terms of relational science, that's it. That's it.
Yeah. I had a question about, I saw a lot of things online and a lot of things on the Facebook about different communities and different protocols that different communities are following, or with regards to the eclipse. I know not looking at it because the moon is, it's a moment of rest for the moon, or there's that reverence or a symbol of peace and togetherness in times of disconnect. Are there any teachings or protocols that either of you know from your communities with regards to the eclipse or those type of alignments?
Well, the first thing, I mean, around the office, one of my supervisors was, she says, I'm old school. I'm not going to be, looking. I won't be going outside to look. She was going to sit in and make a smudge and pray.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister's the same way. My sister, you know, fully westernized, knowledge of the eclipse, but follows her teachings that her grandmother gave her. And
Mm-hmm.
I just find that, she's not opposed to looking at pictures of it or whatever, but to, in the moment, right? Like this idea of the information turning into knowledge because you dance with it, because you interrelate, relate with it. That's what turns it into knowledge, right? Now the knowledge is yours, and you get that knowledge from your perspective, from how you see it, right? So it's not the same knowledge that somebody else dancing with that information would necessarily have. But I think respecting, knowledge that other people, have from their point of view, that's all about respect and humility. So I mean, personally, I don't know what those teachings are. I mean, that's not what was taught to me. I was at university being taught about these things.
Wilfred, are there any protocols or teachings that you know of?
Not on the personal level, but just from hearing people from pretty much all over North, Central, and South America regarding the eclipse and what the various protocols were. That some people do ceremonies, some people go inside and don't look at it. Some people look at it through a pinhole or through a pail of water, or see the reflection and things like that. But I think there's the common sense behind that, of course, is for myself, for my way of understanding, is that, you don't look at the eclipse because it could pretty much burn your retina. So that's basically, that's the common sense behind all of that, I think, for myself anyway, is that, it only made common sense that because you tell a kid not to look at the eclipse, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go look at the eclipse.
Don't look at the sun.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I know, it's funny how 3.5 billion years of life can grow up on this planet and know not to look at the sun, even though it's there all the time. It's
When there's eclipse, you gotta look at it.
I mean, I think some of the stories that I heard when I was growing up from my mom, being in indigenous communities, were about, this is a time when the sun and the moon are coupling. They're in the same lodge. They're and it's a reverent time. It's not a time to make fun or jokes of it. It's just to be respectful. And so I think one thing that just, I mean, it reveals that the sun and the moon are the same size, apparent size on the sky, right? And that revelation is fascinating to me because they are so, vastly different in their causes and effects and how they came to be. And yet they do have this coincidental, and of course we always quote coincidental because the elders say there are no coincidences, and to have that knowledge, because it was our understanding of the orbit of Mercury and Venus that gave us the Venus's transit across the sun is what gave us the scale of the solar system, right? Yeah. So it puts things in perspective. But the true wonderful part about it is that there's absolutely no scientific or physical, basis for that to necessarily be the truth, to necessarily have a moon that large with respect to its planet in such a orbit that it would be exactly the same size as the sun. It's a bizarre coincidence.
It's weird, and I'd never thought about that until you shared that with me when Joy Big Snake did that amazing Morning Star painting. And yeah, the sun, they're the same. It's weird, but not weird, but weird.
Exactly, but it's not weird if you've been raised in First Nation society where that's first woman and first man, right? I mean, of course they're the same size. They're husband and wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a community outside of Saskatoon. It's called Kishigawa, and it translates like Day Star. That's the name of the community.
Day Star.
And when we were observing the partial eclipse outside in Wanaskiwin, outside of Saskatoon, there, some of the people from Day Star were there. And we were setting up the telescopes. And I was telling them, "Oh, you're here to see the name of your reserve." And they looked at me and they said, "What?" I said, "You're here to see the name of the reserve, Day Star." And they said, "Well, we see it every day. It's the sun." I said, "Well, that you could look at it like that, but you watch this. When it gets dark, you'll see a star up in that sky, right at mid when it's supposed to be daytime. There'll be a star up there, bright star, and that's Venus." And so they looked, and it got dark, and there was Venus in the sky, and they just went like everything connected in their head, and they were just totally blown away. They said, "Here I thought all the time they were talking about the sun."
My whole life.
Oh.
No, but that's like that, like the diagram that Wilfred shared. That's how profound it was. It was like, how did I not see that? How did I not, how is that not widely known? How is that, and it's so perfect. To me, it is so perfect, especially the pit, the stone, the grandfathers that we put, in the pit when we're doing the lodge, they were in the sun, right? Getting hot. And that's bringing them back to kind of their state when they formed, right? Of course, when they fell together to form the earth, they were very hot, they were molten, and so it sort of is recreating that sort of set of circumstances, and coming from the sun and coming here to help us is literally the telling of grandfather stone in a number of nations, would say, grandfather stones.
Mhm.
He wasn't listening to Creator, so Creator made him. You're going to be the helper. You're going to help them. And so he's, now he's stuck here, helping us.
Yeah. And you also want to look at it like the states of matter. Everything is active in that process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every single part transforms.
Yeah.
And of course, especially in Cree Lodge, harking to the four directions, invoking them. I was showing Corey not too long, a couple of weeks ago. I sent her a graphic that I saw. Teaching this orbital shells. So the quantum orbital shells of atoms, where the electrons like to hang out, they take like these torus kind of donut shapes and these oblong kind of glass shapes. And there's an F orbital, right? There's the S, P, D, and F orbital going up in energy. And the highest energy orbital is this F orbital. And I guess we're going to get a graphic, right? We're going to put it up.
Yeah.
And we'll show, this interpretation of the shape of the F orbital is exactly a sweat lodge. It's got the two crosses, and it's spherical, right? So it goes underneath.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like what you were talking about. That's the shape of the high energy F orbital. And these are up in the very rare earth metals, like the very bottom of the periodic table.
Fascinating. Wilfred, did you want to talk about the states of matter?
No, just in regard to Matutsa and the sweat lodge, the ceremony, it talks about the states of matter. In that whole process you go through, there's so many scientific cycles, so many processes that happen in just that one ceremony, and how it relates and how it connects to everything else. Everything else that you see in this reality, it connects. That Matutsa, that sweat lodge ceremony, connects you to everything. And it makes you immersed in everything. In all the energy, in those transformation of energies. And the carbon, the oxygen, the nitrogen cycles.
That was my moment of holy crap. Yeah. It's so
Holy
true.
smoke.
Holy smoke.
Holy smoke.
And condensation and quantum. That So in conversations with Rob about I feel like I need to unpack the states of matter and sweat lodges in my own time. Maybe I'll add something in here after when I have my moment. Rob and I were talking about this conversation, and I know you want to talk about the 3-body problem, which is so hot right now because of the new Netflix show.
What? There's a show?
There's a show, yeah. It's maybe less about 3-body
about
problem.
physics and more about people.
But there's physicists in it. It's like a roundabout way. But anyway, I'm not finished it yet, so I can't totally speak about it. But yeah, speaking about the connections between the 3-body problem, maybe you can explain what it is and the connections to the eclipse and therefore the sweat lodge in that same sense.
Right. Well, I mean, the 3 bodies that we're talking about here, the 3-body problem in itself isn't any 3 bodies in particular. It's just 3 that are in co-orbiting each other. And so, the reference to the 3-body problem is coming up with a solution to the field equations, to Einstein's field equations, that would, where the gravity would allow them to orbit, stably. So finding stable orbits for 3 bodies orbiting each other with various masses and at various distances and radii from each other, that's what the 3-body problem is finding that solution space. And
that's very difficult, right?
Right. So mathematically, I mean, if you're trying to think of it from Newtonian, right? Force equals GMM over R squared. And you have to do that. You have to make that calculation at every second because they're all moving. So the forces between them are constantly changing. So of course, once we had the calculus, post Newton, people could actually work on this. And then when Einstein came up with his field equations, that's that 3-body problem in Einsteinian relativistic space was much later. The original 3-body problem was solved in Newtonian mechanics by Leonard Euler. I believe this mathematician Leonard Euler
with the bridges.
He's the guy with the little e, right? The base of the natural logarithms, Leonard Euler. Like, this guy's an amazing giant, but he had a tragic life, a very tragic life, and he ended up solving the 3-body problem in his head while dictating, to an assistant, to write down this, write down that. He's calculating this thing in his head, and he actually solved it for the Earth, Moon, and Sun. So I think that's just a little bit of the history of it. I'm not sure how accurate it is. Check your wiki.
Okay.
But that's really what the problem is. So, and of course, the 3 bodies that we're interested here, certainly in this conversation, would be the Earth, Moon, and Sun. So, the problem itself is sort of, how did the moon get there? So they've run, there's a simulator. Are we going to share this screen? Should I share it now?
Go for it.
So this is Universe Sandbox. And we have the sun. And we're going to play. So if I zoom to the Earth, actually I'm going to view from above. We want to view.
I love this live.
Right. So we're way above. Where did the sun go?
I hate when I lose the sun.
The Earth. The Earth is it. So there's the sun. We got to
Oh,
get
it's
it.
a baby. We're baby.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've got it in the Milky Way. I'm trying to get it out of the Milky Way so you can see it.
I hate when I'm
So
lost in the
way up
Milky Way
over
too.
here, I've got to zoom in the right direction.
Where's the sun now?
I just zoomed out. Okay, I'm just going to zoom to the Earth so we can see the eclipse.
Okay.
Gonna fly. This is I don't use this very often, so
Thanks for testing it out on the podcast and a first video episode.
well, here we go. Here's the
Okay.
Earth, and you can see the dark side of the Earth. They've got some nice lights, city lights, across the continents there, and you
Cool.
can see the terminator. So the moon, of course, we're gonna go to the daytime side. So now we're directly under the sun, and we can zoom out until we get to the moon. So there's the Earth's orbit. And
I will say it is. I'm disoriented because I feel like that we should see like this giant sun right there, but of course not.
The sun is behind us right now. The back of your head is getting very hot because we're zooming right out to the sun.
Okay, we're in the sun.
So this is right. So there's the sun.
Okay.
Okay. So give yourself some perspective.
Okay.
This is like 5 mouse wheel spins. Oh wait,
That was nice.
that's a new unit. So that would take you 8 minutes at the speed of light. That journey we just took. Okay, you want to do it again?
Yes, please.
There's the moon. So the moon is only like a half a mouse but twist. So that's like 1 light second away. Wow. So from the moon to the sun to the Earth, and then if we go back out to the sun, how many wheel turns? Oh, that's right. So there's the sun, and I can't seem to get a half a click. So here's our journey back to the Earth just before the eclipse. There's the moon, and it's going to come across, and oh no, we missed the eclipse. We got to go back, restart. Okay, restart the eclipse. Okay, here it is.
Okay,
now we're zoomed in.
Well, here comes the moon.
And we'll speed it up here so it comes along. So there's the Earth's shadow. It's the moon's shadow on the Earth.
Cool.
Is that cool?
That is super cool.
Right. So you can see how it came in. I mean, of course, there's actual video from space of this happening on that day. And so this is probably
Did they have a jet? Did they have a jet flying under that?
Oh yeah, I'm sure NOAA had jets in there. There's a bit of interest in the cold finger, So this is basically a shadow.
The cold finger?
On the simulation, it doesn't you have to zoom out to really see that there's a shadow there. It's not necessarily that. I was expecting
it's not as
dark dot somewhere.
Yeah, it's not as defined as you maybe think it would be.
Right. So we were way over here in Alberta. We could see 30%, 25% eclipse. And then this is, I've got it stopped here, probably when it was right over New York. So there's this cold finger pointing in the atmosphere, right? And moving along at 1,500 kilometers an hour, or 1,500 miles an hour, whatever it is, and stirring the atmosphere. And that darkness, so that change in temperature, there's quite often a wind associated. We had a wind out at Cardinal just right after, at the darkest point. There was actually a cool wind that came through, and that coldness changes the sound in the air. So if you go from a hot, sunny day where you can hear everything, and then you go to cold, you should actually hear things better, right?
Hear it more, yeah.
Yeah, you should get. But everything goes quiet, and this is what everyone. So there's actual scientific interest in why does everything go quiet, and the animals, they observe them at zoos around all through these cities. I'm sure the zoos were watching the animals and seeing their natural or unnatural responses were to it. So I think that the mathematics of this situation is enough. It took one of the greatest mathematical minds alive at the time, when the math was getting sophisticated enough to actually talk about this problem. But of course, long before Leonard Euler and Newton, the Antikythera mechanism was laying at the bottom of the ocean, for 1,000 years. with a mechanical calculation of these eclipses. So somebody had already done this long before and etched it into metal, cogs and wheels and gears in the Antikythera. You're speaking.
I am. Okay. The cold finger is the shadow.
The cold finger is the shadow moving through the air.
Okay. Yeah. Just want to clarify that for everyone and myself.
I just thought it was a cool visual. It was dark.
It's a very cool visual. Dark. Thank you. And I think it's interesting to think about what, those effects, the effect of this alignment on, the humans is, there's this reverence that happens. And, I've heard different podcasts of, people recording and just like, everyone's just like crying. And there's obviously this alignment and energetic, I guess, connections that are happening. And I've heard the different, I don't know how correct it is, but the different stories of either, birds being more quiet or louder, or even the effects of volcanoes or earthquakes. I don't know how true that is. Do either of you know if there's any, like, what are the effects of this? And I mean, we think this is like incredibly rare, but it happens, twice a year?
Right, twice a year. Yeah.
Twice a year. But obviously, Earth is mostly ocean, so we don't see it. But there has to be some response and some effects of this to, the more than human, not just the human.
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's certainly physical tidal effects when you get, both bodies on one side or the other. There's spring tides and neap tides, lower tides than usual, and spring tides which are much larger than usual. And so, I mean, they were warning about large tides, right around this time in Atlantic Canada, Bay of Fundy and stuff.
And I'm sure that would affect like earthquakes and volcanoes and stuff, of course, right?
Bay of water, an earthquake, I think. But I don't know. I mean, if tectonic plates are really locked together, you would think that any kind of perturbation in that could set off an earthquake, I suppose. But I mean, the Earth, it's very rumbly and malleable. I don't know. Rumbly and malleable. That's very.
That was nice.
That's how I describe the Earth. It's rumbly and malleable. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's interesting. The day prior to that, they had a earthquake in New York State there.
Really?
Yeah, it was like a 7 point something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't have to do it.
Were people selling shirts like I survived the 2026 New York earthquake or something?
Wow.
Interesting. I'm thinking about this change, and everything is obviously changing around us, and everything's in flux, and everything in the universe and in the cosmos is in flux, and it makes me think of one of the stories you told at Teepees and Telescopes in Kananaskis, Wilfred, about precession of equinoxes and the Earth tilt, and the stories of how different the different stories of the North Star. I don't know if you want to share any of those. I was fascinated by that.
Yeah, well, first of all, like everybody knows and everybody says that astronomy is one of the first sciences. Everybody, basically all over the world studied that sky. So everybody saw those patterns. And that knowledge was passed on from generation to generation to generation. And this is prior to the colonial expansion. So this knowledge got passed on, and people retained that knowledge and kept passing it forward. And one of the most interesting things that I found was in reference to the precessional cycle, where there's actually a constellation in the sky that marks the probably the central point of that 26,000-year-old precessional cycle. There's a star up there that's named the Heart of the Sky. And it's named because it is pretty much the center of that precessional cycle, which I thought was fascinating. And that just suggests to me that, Indigenous peoples have been studying the sky for quite a long time. And that's the Northern Hemisphere sky we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's right. I mean, that cycle is around 26,000 years long.
Mm-hmm.
So you need a long history of observations to even become aware of it. Unless, of course, you're told it or shown it in ceremony.
Yeah, that's right. In your past, in your dreams.
Yeah.
Everything comes together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it's not written down, the ways of passing on knowledge becomes much more relational and spiritual. So where are we on the 26,000 year cycle currently?
Well, you're always halfway through, right? No, I'm joking. So, but we are. So when I was in university, they were pointing at Vega. They said, Polaris is now, and 13,000 years will be near Vega. But I think there's a better, more accurate position than that. So in the center of, between, if you made a circle with Vega and Polaris, that would be roughly the circle in the northern sky. Interestingly, there's no southern star. There's no bright, easily catchy star right near the southern rotational. So I wonder how you could notice the precession of the equinoxes right along the ecliptic. So where all the planets move and the stars that they move through, those precess as well, right? Because this precession is literally the entire orbit is precessing. So the precession of the equinoxes is visible in the zodiac, along the zodiac signs. And, people will point out quite often that astrological readings are way off from where stuff actually is right now. I don't know how they account for that. I'm sure they do.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, just like approximately 22,000 years ago, the North Star in the Northern Hemisphere was Tsuut'ina, constellation Draco, and that's the star that the Egyptians lined the pyramids at Giza with Tsuut'ina.
Really?
So that's part of the precessional cycle.
Wait a minute, isn't that in the belt of Orion?
It's in constellation Draco.
Okay.
It's in the tail of Draco.
It's a great name too.
Yeah, I'll have to bring up a star. But I'm looking at the ones I've actually you're talking.
If you look at that map inside there, you'll see the precessional cycle in there.
Exactly, that's what I was looking at.
Tsuut'ina is in there.
But I'm plugging your book here.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Last time I saw Wilfred, he was hawking these. They're awesome. So
and all the constellation
those
stuff.
That are watching at Toronto Hot Docs on Friday and Saturday this coming week, the awesome documentary movie suspiciously titled Wilfred Buck is
yeah,
he's going to be premiering.
Yes, we will put definitely a hype up and put some socials about Wilfred's awesome documentary that has been filmed with for over several years with Lisa Jackson and lots of awesome humans. And yeah, we'll definitely put a link to that. There's the Cree Star map.
Yep.
We will put it in.
We're also going to have it on.
We'll have it on the screen for everyone to see. But okay, I'm going to switch, but not switch us a little bit. But yeah, we're talking about changes, flux, variables. Rob, you already mentioned how I never thought about how the temperature, the effects of, I guess, the temperature changes during the eclipse. But we recently had conversation with elders and knowledge keepers at the Science Center about the first thunder, which is around the time of the first thunder here. Apparently, it's happened twice. I have not heard it, but how I think we had many elders and knowledge keepers there. I have to say, Keith Eagle Speaker from Guyana, Diana Melting Tallow from Siksika, Alice Quits from Îethka Nakoda, and then obviously Rob Cardinal, and talking about this first thunder and how many variables have to come together for that moment to happen. I think really, I guess for me was one of those moments that struck me in that conversation. And maybe we'll start with Wilfred here, if there's any significance within your community for the first thunder and teachings or scientific teachings of the first thunder.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of them from all over the place. But one of the things that I find most significant is in regard to Otipemisiwak, that moon, and those 13 cycles, the 13 moons in one whole cycle. One of the elders went so far as to say those 13 moons could represent a season within themselves. So there are actually 13 seasons, because the names of those moons come specifically from the environment, from the latitude, and from the language that moon is observed from. So the moon that's coming up, they'll call that moon, one of the names they have for that moon is Îethka, which is the thunderbird, and it's in significance to that first thunderbird. But it's also called the budding moon. Of course, when the leaves start budding, and a lot of the trees and the willows and the leaves start growing. So that's a specific something that's happening in the environment, very specific with that moon, associated with that moon. They could even go so far as to say they could identify what day you're talking about in that moon. So if you said something like Nisugi-sigaw, Arigaspism, Nisugi-sigaw, it means the fourth day of the frog moon. So that identifies specifically a time of year, that a specific day of that time of that when that moon is out. And they could identify the procession of time in regard to those moons, and the first thunders. Of course, everybody had them at different times in different places, because they were observed from different latitudes and different environments. But they were very significant, because that signified that the water was coming alive, and that the ground was coming alive, and the ground and the water were starting to interact, that things were starting to happen, energy was starting to flow.
I think it's an amazing definition of the different moons and the significance of each of those in connection to a specific place. And I think it's, you see in different places, a post saying, this is the sturgeon moon, or this is whatnot. But you think like that is from a specific, like you said, latitude and land and community that has that those animals, those plants have a specific connection with that moon, and how it has to be so different. And that, that is the main difference between Indigenous and global or Western science, is that specific, unique land-based teachings of Indigenous science.
Well, I think it extends to the language. I mean, I don't speak my language yet, certainly not well, but from what I do know about it, the words are so contextual. They're not just like a dictionary definition. This word is used here. It's used in context to who you're talking with and what you're talking about. There are certain words that you wouldn't say, for instance, in front of certain ceremonial people or lodge people or women, who are involved in one society or another. There are just certain words you just won't use. And there was a linguist, I can't remember his name, but he was saying how First Nations languages in general, but particularly ones in North America are so contextual that they carry a lot more information than just a single definition for a word. And English, for instance, is a very non-contextual word. It's just, put this here, and they're little, grunts, little syllables.
Grunts.
But they're interchangeable because they're not that contextual. Anyway, I thought it was interesting.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, the words are so much more visceral. I mean,
and relational. It's the connection with yourself.
We called the place Head Smashed in Buffalo Jump. I mean, it was the most goriest part of the entire thing, and that's the name, right?
I know, Rob, if you want to speak about the First Thunder in connection to the buds.
The First Thunder, what you mentioned, I think, the coming together of all, in time of all these different forces. So the humidity, the temperature, the sunlight, and at your latitude, all have to be in a certain range, to produce, lightning storms and thunder. And it's really interesting that okay, we talk about the thunder clearly, but that's initiated by lightning. And it's very interesting that such a kind of a vague general change has this incredibly sudden flash start, right? And that fascinates me, right? Because it's like the radioactive decay of an element, of an atom. It's got a half-life. There's a 50-50 chance that it's going to be gone within one half-life, but you never know when it's going to go. And the instant that it decays, that's it. It's just like a single instant, but it could be anywhere in this huge range. Anyway, I don't know why that has anything to do with it, but I like the suddenness to something that is so broad and vague and general, and then it's just all this. And in terms of Blackfoot Siksika culture, that's the call to that's when the bundles get opened and danced. That's the beginning to all the ceremony season. And so that's why it's very important to note it, and because things need to begin.
Yeah, and when you look at it, those first thunders and how they interact with everything, again, you're gonna see it like the four energies. The four energies are interacting. There was this famous experiment done, I think it was in Harvard, where they tried to create amino acids, and basically trying to get the basic elements of life going, and doing this experiment. But they didn't include Ashiniak, the rock, as part of that process. And so they couldn't get it until somebody stumbled across a limestone rock. They dropped into the mixture, and then they were able to make this amino acid with carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen. And that's basically those elements when the first thunders come. Those things are becoming active altogether, and you get a big burst of life.
I'm gonna look for that study. Fascinating. Talking about land, significance of different lands and teachings, it was Hal Eagletail from Tsuut'ina who told me the story of the significance of the connection of the Chinook winds and the first thunder. And here, I think it's one of the. I heard there's only maybe three places in the world that have Chinooks. And it's a really warm wind that comes over from the Pacific over the mountains. And it's usually in like one day it can be minus 30 degrees Celsius here. The next day it's like 10 degrees or 5 degrees. And it's sunny.
It's Chinook. I thought somebody was calling me Schnook.
Well, it could easily be a 40-degree temperature.
Yeah. It could be, even 40 degree. And
minus 20 to plus 20. I've seen that.
Yeah. And there's a warm wind. It's, lots of people get the headaches because there's a massive air pressure change, temperature change, everything. And then it usually happens in like a couple in January, maybe February. And Hal Eagletail, I think, and Casey Eagle Speaker would say those are like the first alarm clocks, like this of the plants and the animals that are hibernating, where it's like, oh, okay, I'll think about it, but I'm just gonna push the snooze button again. I'm just gonna go back to sleep. And then it's the first thunder and that lightning and those ionic changes that happen, and all those things coming together. That is like, okay, you got to get up now. And that's what happens here. After I was looking at the buds, and I did a big harvest here of the cottonwood buds a couple of weeks ago, and they were still closed, and it was after that first thunder. And now they're starting to bud. So,
well, I'm still waiting to hear the first thunder.
I'm still waiting too. I know. I haven't done my own ceremony.
This is going to be the day. This is going to be the day. Carrying around my tobacco.
It happened to me once where I didn't hear it, and then I was going on a trip to Mexico, and then I was there for like 10 days, and then I was only back for a couple of days, and then I went to New Zealand, and I hadn't heard the first thunder, and I was in New Zealand. This was like May and June, and I was in New Zealand for like a month. I'm like going nuts because I haven't heard the first thunder, and then it happened. I was in a storm. I'm like, I need tobacco. I was like desperate. I need tobacco. So I got tobacco. It was fantastic. But there's like I almost feel like a buildup of energy, just waiting for that.
I know. I feel actual anxiety. Like,
yeah.
Where me and my sister were talking about yesterday. She goes, I know it's late. It's really weird. Everyone gets there.
Yeah. Has there been the first thunder there, Wilfred?
Yep. But of course I never heard it.
No.
Oh no.
But it's here. Well, they're saying there's going to be a thunderstorm tonight, so I'm waiting.
Okay. Oh gosh. We'll get there.
Yeah. When my kids were small, the first thunders, everybody'd skip down to their shorts and run around outside, and Connie would just
Yeah, I love thunderstorms. I've always loved thunderstorms, and just sit on the deck, and of course my parents freaking out because I heard I hit by lightning. I'm like, there's trees there, it's fine. Is there anything else that either of you would like to touch on about eclipses, weather, first thunder, or anything that we haven't mentioned here?
Well, certainly the weather. I mean, we call this, waiting for the thunder. We want to hear the thunderbirds, right? Well, where do these thunderbirds come from? What's their story? And I don't know the stories. I don't know, for instance, what a Blackfoot telling would be that talks about the thunderbird. Wilfred clearly does for Cree, and I would like to hear that. But in piecing together various narratives, the thunderbird nest is talked about as being in Sagittarius, where the Milky Way center is, and the black hole in the Milky Way center is, identified as being the egg in the thunderbird's nest. And I was thinking about the weather, right? So the weather in the spring makes, the lightning. Well, the weather is all from the sun, right? The sun's heat makes the weather on the earth. So, but if you go, so the weather's kind of like a mood, right? We all have like a mood, it's sort of predictable, but it's a little chaotic, sometimes a little stormy. And weather is like that. But weather is, chaos. Like, it's a chaotic system. So it's got order, but it's the chaos part of it is not random and haphazard. Chaotic systems are highly ordered. They're just, you have to know the initial conditions perfectly to predict where they're going to be, and you can't know that, so you can't predict, beyond a certain timeline. And the same is true as, at any rate, the weather. You go outside the atmosphere into space, you got space weather. You got the sun's billowing solar wind blowing the tails off of comets and whatnot. Just happened at 12p, and that's weather too. And that weather is forcing our weather, right? Like, that is actually, and so the same is true of space weather. It's chaotic, but it's got order, and it's got a period of 11 years. And then if you go outside the solar system, right, now you're in galactic, now you're in interstellar weather in the galaxy. Now you're in Thunderbird sky, right? There's very high energy particles, there's cosmic rays, and of course, there's gravitational waves coming and passing through. So the weather out there is much different. But again, it's all dependent on the weather from the black hole, the center of the Milky Way, right? The effects come all the way out, all the way to us. This is sort of the gist of what I was talking about when the connection to the weather. It's really weather all the way back. I mean, we're all basically dangling from a string at the center of the galaxy. Right? I was telling Corey about the pendulum, right? You take a double pendulum, you have a pendulum, you hang another pendulum from it, now you got a double pendulum. Well, now you've got chaotic motion. Now you can never predict where the ends are going to be unless you knew the perfect starting position. But of course, there's a solution. You can see it right in front of your eye. We'll just add a few more pendulums, like maybe 1 trillion of them, and dangle them from the middle of the galaxy. And that's you. That's you and me. We're dangling at the end of these n-couple long pendula.
I feel like that's the t-shirt. It's
like we're saying that the chaos of even
enough subjective arm wave.
Yeah, trying to predict that weather. One of the things that was noticed by a lot of the elders this time around the spring was how cold it got this winter. Whereas it didn't get cold enough for the sap in the trees to freeze. Therefore, the bark didn't explode. Therefore, come springtime, that tree can't expand as fast as it would normally in a growing cycle, because it'll be enclosed by bark, and the sap won't flow as freely as well. So all this is affected by basically that moon and the cold temperatures that were supposed to happen during those moons. So I'm pretty concerned about that.
So it wasn't cold enough for the bark to split open.
Yeah, for the sap to freeze.
For the sap to freeze and therefore expand and therefore to
blow out the bark. Yeah.
And then, interesting.
Yeah, so you see when your camp rings on a log, you'll see wide years and narrow years, and that's amazing. That's super cool.
Yeah, part of the chaos.
Part of the chaos. Wow. Oh, so many things. Do either of you have questions for one another before we wrap up here?
When are we going to see each other again here?
No kidding. I think it's my turn to come out that way. You've been out here. You've been all over Turtle Island. I've been stuck here working nose to the grindstone. And next TVs and Telescopes is?
Well, hopefully we can have one in maybe March sometime in 2025.
Okay, yes, we're thinking of that. Then I heard there's a mini one that Juan Carlos wants to start the end of August.
Is that in Rainier?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool in August. I don't know about August in Rainier. It'd be cool anyway.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
As long as the mountains don't blow their top, it'd be okay.
Okay, we'll figure that out. We'll figure that out. I'm sure we will all meet again very soon because you both are amazing humans, and I always learned so much from both of you. So with that, I think we can wrap up. I am so grateful and thankful for this conversation. I've been looking forward to this for weeks, and I'm so happy we could find a time for all of us to chat. And thanks for being on our first video episode. To all the Indigenous or the Ancestral Science Podcast listeners, remember all of the amazing knowledge that was shared here today. It's not Ancestral Science Podcast. It's not mine. It belongs to the Knowledge Keeper and the Elder and the land that they're from. So if you want to share that, make sure you cite your sources and credit the humans and the land they're from with that knowledge. As always, there's unique Indigenous Science t-shirts that are connected to each episode on Relational Science Circle, all one word.com/shop. All the money goes towards Knowledge Keepers, honoraria, editing, and keeping this podcast going. So check that out. And if you want to support in a free way, you can follow, like, share, and rate. That is much appreciated. Again, a big thank you to the Indigenous Screen Office, Emil, Starlight for editing and production, as well as our new member of the pod team, Alex Flett, who will be doing production assistance work. So thank you so much, Wilfred and Rob. I am so grateful. So with that,
thank you for getting me on here. I got to dust off the Universe Sandbox thing. I'm going to play with it.
Perfect. And we'll have all the links and everything up in the show notes. So with that, until we meet again.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Wilfred. Take care.
All right, we'll see everybody
In
again.
a month
Stay tuned.
until we meet again.
Oh, right on.
Hi.
Okay, bye.